Welcome back to the channel. I am your host Ab-stract, and this is the Ab-stract section. A while ago, I asked the community to vote on our next in-depth video, and to my surprise, an overwhelming majority of you guys wanted a Bleach Cosmology video, so here it is. This took a lot of time and research, but I think you'll all be satisfied in the end. In this video, expect to get a full comprehensive breakdown of the Bleach Cosmology along with how each dimension factors in. Let's get started. Subscribe to the channel. Before we can understand Bleach's cosmology, we must first explore its cosmogony. I'll be referencing both Can't Fear Your Own World light novel volume 3 and the 1000 Year Blood War anime to provide a comprehensive breakdown. In episode 28 of the 1000 Year Blood War, we're introduced to an info card titled The Triplet World. While interpretations of the Japanese text varied, the concept of a primordial sea is a consistent element across nearly all translations. Let's break down what the primordial sea represents. The primordial sea, or primeval waters, is a motif of creation deeply rooted in ancient mythology, particularly Egyptian Kemetic theology. It symbolizes the state of existence before the universe's creation. According to Kemetic thought, this state was formless, nameless, and undifferentiated. In the Petit Emheru, also known as the Egyptian Book of the Dead, it is referred to as Yan Retef, meaning the place where nothing grows. In this realm, nothing is generated, nothing is desired, and nothing is changed. Kubo draws from this ancient motif, giving it a unique Bleach twist. In Can't Fear Your Own World Volume 3, page 143, Ichibei shares the origins of the three worlds with Squad Zero, describing a similar state. I quote, "In that age, in all of creation, many things were ambiguous. There was no such thing as life or death, and without progress there was no retreat. This was a world where one could only wait for all things to chill over the course of 10,000 or even 100 million years." This description highlights the timeless, stagnant nature of the primordial sea, aligning it with mythological depictions of eternal voids. However, Kubo gives it a unique spin within the context of Bleach, framing it as the foundation upon which creation begins, not its first point. Episode 28 makes it clear that the primordial sea is the origin point for the creation of the three worlds. However, it's crucial to note that the sea itself exists beyond time and space. It is eternal and absolute, transcending any concept of beginning or end. Ichibei's statement about waiting for 10,000 or 100 million years emphasizes the immeasurability of this state. Without a frame of reference, time cannot be quantified. His high estimate reflects the unknowable nature of the sea rather than an actual passage of time. To further clarify that creation begins after the formation of the three worlds, we can examine multiple sources confirming Soul Society's history only dates back to 1 million years, not Ichibei's extreme highball of 100 million years. This distinction highlights that the primordial sea served as the precursor to creation, while true cosmological activity unfolded within the structured realms of Bleach's triplet world. But who actually separated the one universe into three? Here's where the narrative diverges slightly between the anime and the novels. In the anime, Adonais creates three ripples on the primordial sea, symbolizing the formation of the three worlds. In the novels, the five great families use his power to create the worlds after sealing him. Coming from Can't Fear Your Own World Volume 3, page 145, using his almighty power as the linchpin, the five created the foundations of the new world: the Soul Society, the world of the living, and Hueco Mundo. Now, personally, I'm more inclined to go with the anime on this one, but regardless of how the formation happened, the common thread is that the Soul King's influence is what ultimately shapes and maintains the cosmology. So to summarize, number 1, the primordial sea is a timeless, formless void that has always existed and serves as the foundation for creation but is not itself the first point of creation. Number 2, regardless of who performed the act, it is the Soul King's power that created and now maintains the cosmology. Number 3, the history of the world begins only after their creation, while the primordial sea remains an eternal, unchanging entity. Now that we've established the cosmogony, let's move forward to discuss the first layer of Bleach's cosmology, the Garganta. The Garganta serves as the foundation for all realms and dimensions within the Bleach universe. It was first introduced in chapter 240 of the manga when Ichigo and his friends were traveling to Hueco Mundo. Keisuke Urahara describes it as a turbulent flow of spirit particles, which acts as the medium through which hollows and Arrancars traverse dimensions. But to truly grasp its role, we need to explore its relationship with the other realms. So, to visualize the Garganta's function, consider this analogy from Can't Fear Your Own World Volume 2, page 211. If the world of the living in the Soul Society could be likened to planets, and the pipeline that connected them were the Dangai, the voided space that surrounded those was called Garganta. This description clarifies that the Garganta isn't just a passage for hollows and people to traverse, but is an overarching void that surrounds all the realms. Its presence extends to every corner of the Bleach cosmology, making it a layer upon which all dimensions rest. In episode 32 of the Thousand Year Blood War, Yudoichi echoes this very same concept, describing the Garganta as the void surrounding everything, which again solidifies its role as a universal layer. Now within the Garganta exist countless subdimensions known as the Valley of Screams. These dimensions are formed by the accumulation of countless souls that fall victim to the restrictive currents of the Precipice world. And these Valley of Screams can vary in size, being small enough for Yukio and Riruka to manipulate to being planets themselves with celestial bodies inside of them. Now one of the most striking features of the Garganta is its omnipresence. As I've said, it surrounds every dimension, but it also serves as a gateway to all the other realms, including the Soul Society, the World of the Living, Hueco Mundo, the Dangai Precipice world, and even places like the Royal Palace. So with the Garganta established as the connective tissue of the Bleach universe, we can now move on to the three primary realms that exist within it: Hueco Mundo, the Soul Society, and the World of the Living. Now it should be very obvious and clear that the World of the Living and the Soul Society are celestial bodies existing within an observable universe. So we'll start with Hueco Mundo. During my research for this, I found a single panel showing a starry sky, but the majority of depictions present a barren night with only the moon visible. And according to AAAP scaling principles, we prioritize what is most consistently shown to maintain a high level of accuracy and consistency. This doesn't necessarily rule out the existence of stars in Hueco Mundo, but the most accurate interpretation based on evidence is that of an empty sky. However, consistency would also dictate that since the Soul Society and World of the Living are confirmed universes within themselves, that this would lead to Hueco Mundo being one as well. After all, they were created at the same time and in a similar fashion, and even hollows like Baragon are familiar with outer space. But for now, I'm comfortable concluding that Hueco Mundo is a planet within a dimension of an unknown size. As for the Soul Society and the World of the Living, why are these realms classified as universes rather than mere planets? Well, let's revisit a quote I've mentioned before. If the World of the Living and the Soul Society could be likened to planets, and the pipeline that connected them were the Dangai, the voided space that surrounded those was called Garganta. This tells us that while referring to these places as planets may help visualize their relationship, it would not be an accurate interpretation of these places. The reason they aren't strictly planets lies in their separate universal context. Moreover, this quote reinforces that the Garganta is distinct from outer space. We've seen characters like Kenpachi struggling to survive in outer space, yet Ichigo and friends travel through the Garganta perfectly fine. This also supports the idea that the Garganta functions as a separate layer entirely. So from the eyes of the person who thinks they're talking about planets, this is how the cosmology would look so far. You would have Earth, the Soul Society, the Dangai, the Garganta, along with the Valley of Screams. Now the issue with this model is, if the Garganta is indeed the void of space that surrounds the planets, number one, this would be the Kishi world interacting with the Reishi world, which is impossible. Number two, this would effectively make the Dangai a place you can travel to without the access of a portal or a gate. Because remember, if we're making them planets in this scenario, then that would make the Garganta the physical void of space, and in turn make the Dangai physical because it surrounds that as well. So, the Dangai would be a physical place you could go to on Earth, find it somewhere, and just walk to the Soul Society, is what you're saying if the Garganta surrounds just planets. And number three, this would also mean that the Valley of Screams exists in the physical world, which again would just be impossible. And there's about 2 to 3 more reasons I could state why this model does not work. So with an understanding that they're not talking about just planets, in full context the phrase would sound something like this: if these universes could be likened to planets, the pipeline that connected them was the Dangai, and the void of space that surrounded these universes was called Garganta. Looking at more direct evidence, the Soul Society clearly features a sun, moon, and multiple stars filling its night sky. It's also described as a parallel to the World of the Living, often likened to two sides of the same coin. In essence, the Soul Society contains not just a planetary body, but a celestial environment with outer space and stars, qualities that point to it being a self-contained universe. Now within Soul Society's universe, we have distinct spaces like the Royal Palace, Muken, and the Schattenbarek. Starting with the Royal Palace, Yamamoto claims it exists in a separate dimension. However, this assertion is debatable, as travel to and from the Royal Palace can occur with basic 3D movement provided the protective barriers are down. No portals, gates, or dimensional shifts are required. This suggests that the Royal Palace is more of a closed-off area rather than an entirely separate dimension. Now you might be wondering if this contradicts my earlier point about the Garganta granting access to every spatial dimension. The answer is no, and here's why. If simply traversing the Garganta was all it took to reach the Royal Palace, Aizen would have undoubtedly taken his entire army there from the start. Similarly, if Yuha could have bypassed the barriers using the Garganta, he might have chosen a different approach. Though knowing Yuha, he likely still would have destroyed Zerete. Regardless, the key point is that access to the Royal Palace depends on whether or not the barriers are active, meaning the Garganta alone isn't sufficient for entry. Next we have the lowest underground prison detention space known as Muken. Now during my research for this, the main issue lied in whether or not this place was infinite, almost infinite, or if Unohana was misinformed or whatever. And for every argument I found, a decently substantiated counter-argument was also present. And the main issue is, I don't know Japanese, and I don't fully trust the interpretations I see because I can't verify the source. So here's what I've decided to do. Being that Kubo has had his hand extensively in the Thousand Year Blood War anime and everything in it is considered the new canon, I'm going to go with what Unohana said in the anime. So in the English version, she states Muken is immeasurably vast, and something immeasurable is incapable of being measured. Therefore, this would qualify for infinite. And then in the Japanese version, she literally says infinitely vast. So there you have it. I'm going with this interpretation because nearly everything done in the Thousand Year Blood War is approved by Kubo, and he is taking a proactive role when it comes to giving his input and opinion. And if he wanted Muken to be stated anything other than infinite, I'm certain it would have been so. With that being said, I won't be talking about the novels, the 13 Blades data book, or any other version than the most current one because it's all ultimately opinion and for the most part outdated. Now let's move on to the Dangai. According to Ishin, the Dangai is a disconnected space surrounded by a torrent of layers upon layers of time. It acts as a boundary that separates the world of the living and the Soul Society while simultaneously serving as a hyperspace that connects both of these places. Now during my research, and this is something I actually did not know, I found that the Dangai itself is more than just the corridor that seemingly connects both worlds. In the Bleach movie Memories of Nobody, Kisuke's explanation and Tessai's visual representation depict the Dangai as covering the world of the living and Soul Society, not just being limited to a corridor. This would also make sense since in that very same movie, our main villain's family was banished from the Soul Society and had to aimlessly traverse the precipice world, losing people on the way. And obviously they didn't just walk backward and forward down the same tunnel. This depiction of the precipice world is again shown during episode 33 where Yoruichi talks about the Valley of Screams scattered throughout the Garganta. Now finally, we arrive at the most gross plane of existence, the world of the living. This realm is considered the last in this breakdown because all subtler planes of existence can interact with it, while it cannot naturally interact with those higher planes. For example, beings from the subtler planes like Soul Society and Hueco Mundo cannot be perceived by individuals from the most gross plane. In physical matter, Kishi cannot exist in the higher planes like those places, however, spiritual matter can still form within the world of the living. The world of the living is obviously a universe, as it's modeled after our own. It has stars, a sun, a moon, and even references astrology. In one of Kubo's sketches, Cone explicitly refers to a galaxy, solidifying the fact that this realm exists as part of a greater cosmological structure. This further confirms that these realms are separate universes with their own unique features and roles within the overall cosmology. So in terms of higher planes and lower planes versus more subtle and more denser ones, the order would go as follows. At the highest level of what would be known as existence, we have the primeval waters, a transcendental and absolute realm of stagnation but at the same time generation. Next we would have the Garganta, followed by the Precipice World, then the Valley of Screams, followed by the Soul Society and Hueco Mundo. Lastly, the world of the living. So now that we have all our places and spaces, let's classify them. Bleach by definition would be a multiverse. But what is a multiverse? Let's look at a few of those definitions. Coming from Oxford, we have a multiverse being defined as a theoretical reality that includes a possibly infinite number of parallel universes, including the one we live in, each with different laws of physics, structures, and origins. The series presents a layered existence of distinct realms such as the world of the living, Soul Society, Hueco Mundo, the Garganta, and the Dangai. Each realm has unique laws and structures. The world of the living follows standard physical laws. Soul Society operates under spiritual and temporal differences. Hueco Mundo features distinct atmospheric differences. The Garganta is a chaotic void connecting dimensions, and the Dangai is timeless and formless. I think this definition fits. The Britannica has a multiverse described as a hypothetical collection of potentially diverse observable universes, each of which would comprise everything that is experimentally accessible by a connected community of observers. Again, Bleach fits this criteria for a multiverse, 2 to 3 observable universes that are experimentally accessible by a community of observers. So within this multiverse, the Garganta serves as the spiritual bedrock of all universes, and according to the novels, it's described as an endless or infinite black cavity depending on the translations, as well as time passing differently inside the Garganta than outside of it. And this would make sense since it houses all of reality. The Dangai is not only cut off from all worlds, including space and time, but inside of it, it has its own temporal axis where time moves faster, and interaction with the restrictive current can actually kill somebody by essentially throwing them through time. Now, I'm not going to get all nerdy and say these things are 5 and 6D, although the argument could definitely be made, and I'll leave the links to those arguments in the description below. Next we have the Valley of Screams, created by the Dangai but existing inside of the Garganta. Then we have the Soul Society, Hueco Mundo, and finally, the World of the Living. So that makes 2 to 3 observable universes, with each Valley of Screams having the potential to be a universe in itself. The Dangai Precipice world that would be larger than any of the observable universes since it covers them, not to mention the fact that it's completely closed off from any of the other worlds with its own temporal axis that acts as both a hyperspace and a boundary. And lastly, the Garganta, which covers every facet of reality and acts as the most subtle observable layer. So that is it. I hope you guys enjoyed that video. That is the entire Bleach cosmology. I mean, with the exception of like Hell and some other places that I didn't mention, but generally that is the entire Bleach cosmology. Stay on the lookout for my Damon versus the Bleach video, and be on the lookout for some debunk videos as far as arguments against multiversal Bleach, or yeah, because there are people who think the Bleach verse is just planets, and so we go over that in our breakdown / debunk video. So yeah, Ab-stract 2024, subscribe to the channel guys, we out.
What's good, y'all? Welcome to why exactly planetary bleach does not make any logical sense. So this is pretty much all self-explanatory. We have the Soul Society, and then we have the planet they reside in, and that is separated from the Royal Palace. And we have the World of the Living, and that consists of Earth. Then we have Hueco Mundo, the several Kyogoku dimensions, and then we have the Garganta, which is represented as the paper. I also listed off the things we know about the realms as well. They are separate realms, they're separate timelines as well. They're fourth dimensional structures, they're stated to be universes, they're composed of different materials. The Soul Society having Rishi and the World of the Living having Kishi. They're surrounded and separated by a space-time continuum, being the Garganta, and they're also bordered by the Dangai, which is cut off from time and space. Now, anybody with a logical thinking brain would understand these realms are multiverses, but we're gonna look at this cosmology from the lens of a down player and try to see how the fucking feats would make sense if the realms are only planetary and the universe and the celestial bodies are in this limbo dimension between the fucking planet and the Garganta. We're gonna see if that makes sense, right? So what we're gonna do, we're gonna grab U-Haul and place him on the Soul Society's planet, right? And what was U-Haul's goal, everyone? To destroy the 3 realms and combine them into one. So now each realm is a planet. So somehow U-Haul would have to grab these 3 planets that exist in separate universes, avoid the rest of the celestial bodies, and combine them into one, while simultaneously destroying the Garganta, which is infinite, yet avoiding the rest of the celestial bodies. And after he combines the planets into one, where is that planet gonna reside in? I don't know. What universe is gonna reside in? I don't know, bruh. His power is clearly seen traversing through the Garganta to affect these separate realms. So how the fuck is he gonna enter into this, wherever this is, pass through all the celestial bodies, pass through the universe, and only affect this planet, yet avoid the celestial bodies? But I'm not even making an argument right now, but bro, just think, bro. He has enough range to affect the multiverse, but it's only affecting a planet, bro. Yeah.